Female veteran catches a Mustang dragging a heavy bag. What's inside leaves her speechless. It was a morning like any other, quiet, still, and cold. Serena Clark, a retired military medic, sat alone in her cabin, miles away from civilization, nestled in the heart of a dense, remote forest. But today, something was different. The silence felt heavier, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Then, without warning, a sound broke through the stillness, a dragging, scraping noise that sent an immediate chill down her spine. It wasn't the wind, nor the usual wildlife. This was deliberate, unnatural. A shiver of unease crawled up Serena's neck. She had spent years in the military, trained to stay alert, to sense danger before it appeared. But this was something she couldn't explain. The sound grew louder, dragging itself across the earth, closer and closer to her cabin. Serena's instincts kicked in instantly. She stood up quickly, grabbing her jacket, her heart pounding. What could be causing this? Her mind raced, but she already knew she couldn't stay inside. The pull to investigate was undeniable. Serena stepped out into the biting morning air, the cold nipping at her skin, but her focus was on the sound. The forest stretched out before her, eerily still, the fog lingering low to the ground. Then, in the distance, she saw it. At first, she couldn't believe her eyes. A wild Mustang was dragging something heavy behind it. Her heart skipped a beat. This was no ordinary wild horse. The Mustang, its sleek black coat glistening in the soft light, pulled something large, something wrapped in fabric, across the dirt. It moved with purpose, its hooves striking the ground in a steady rhythm, dragging the heavy weight behind it. Serena's breath caught in her throat as the mystery deepened. It wasn't running. It wasn't frightened. It was as if the Mustang was on a mission, determined, focused. And the bag it carried, something about it seemed out of place. Serena instinctively took a step closer, her legs moving almost against her will, drawn to the strange, unsettling sight before her. Serena's gaze locked on the bag as it moved closer. Her pulse quickened. The bag was large, heavy, and looked worn from the journey. But it was more than that. It felt wrong, as though it didn't belong in this pristine forest. The Mustang didn't falter, its movements deliberate as it dragged the bag with an eerie calm. There was a pull, something almost magnetic about the way the Mustang moved, and Serena felt it too. She had no idea what was inside the bag, but every part of her screamed to find out. She took another step forward, the unsettling weight of the moment sinking deeper into her chest. The Mustang didn't stop. It didn't even acknowledge her. But Serena, with her military training and years of instincts, felt it in her bones. Whatever was inside that bag, it was something that needed to be discovered. A feeling of dread washed over her as she moved closer, yet her feet carried her forward. There was no turning back now. She had to know what lay hidden inside. Serena's breath quickened as she moved closer to the Mustang, her boots crunching softly on the dirt. Every step she took felt like a lifetime. The closer she got, the more the bag seemed to move. It shifted ever so slightly, as if something inside was alive, struggling. Serena's heart raced, the hairs on the back of her neck standing at attention. Was it another animal? Or something else entirely? The Mustang stood still, almost guarding the bag, its dark eyes locked on Serena with an unwavering focus. There was no fear in the animal's stance, only determination, as though it knew something Serena didn't. As she knelt down, her hand trembling, she couldn't shake the feeling that what she was about to uncover would change everything. She hesitated for a moment, her mind racing. Why had the Mustang brought this here? What was so important about this bag? Serena knew she couldn't walk away without finding out, but the unease settled deeper in her gut. With shaking hands, Serena reached for the bag, her fingers brushing against the rough fabric. She pulled back the folds, and the weight of the moment hit her all at once. Inside the bag, curled up and barely breathing, was a tiny Mustang foal, its fragile body covered in dirt and blood. Serena's heart sank. The foal was small, too small. It barely moved, its chest rising and falling with shallow, labored breaths. Its coat was matted with dirt, and its eyes, dark wide and filled with fear, stared up at Serena, pleading for help. The sight was almost too much to bear. She could see the injuries, scrapes and cuts on its legs, the faint bruising on its sides. Her hands shook as she gently moved the foal out of the bag, cradling its frail body in her arms. It was so cold, its skin almost lifeless under her touch. The Mustang foal let out a soft whimper, barely audible, but it was enough to break Serena's heart. She could feel it. This wasn't just a chance encounter. The foal, struggling to survive, had somehow made its way into Serena's life for a reason. She could sense that she was meant to be here, at this very moment, to help. But even as she held it, doubt swirled in her mind. Could she save it? Was it too late? The foal's survival seemed impossible, but Serena wasn't one to give up easily. The Mustang foal's eyes locked with Serena's, an unspoken understanding passing between them. The foal's gaze was filled with something deeper, an almost human-like desperation, as if it knew it had found someone who could help. Serena's breath caught in her throat as the foal let out a quiet cry, a weak, trembling sound that was barely audible in the quiet of the forest. It was a cry for help, a silent plea that seemed to echo in the stillness around her. The moment felt surreal. There was something bigger at play here, something that Serena couldn't quite grasp. Why had the Mustang brought this foal to her? How had it known where to go? Serena glanced back at the Mustang, still standing in the distance, watching her with its steady gaze. It was clear now that the foal wasn't just in need of rescue, it was part of something far larger than a simple act of survival. The weight of the moment pressed heavily on Serena's chest. Whatever had brought this foal to her, she had no choice but to follow through. She wasn't sure how, but she knew she couldn't leave the foal to die alone. Serena carefully laid the foal down on a bed of leaves, gently smoothing the dirt and debris from its fragile form. But her gaze never left the Mustang. The wild horse stood a few yards away, watching with intense, protective eyes. It didn't move closer to the foal, no, it simply watched, its posture calm but alert, as if waiting for something. The wild Mustang's eyes never strayed from the foal, a silent protector in this strange moment. Serena could feel the weight of the Mustang's gaze, knowing that whatever was happening here wasn't ordinary. The Mustang's behavior was so unusual. Wild horses, especially Mustangs, are fiercely independent creatures, and they tend to keep their distance from humans. But this Mustang wasn't leaving. It didn't run. It wasn't spooked. It was as if it had brought the foal to her with a purpose, an unspoken duty. The bond between the Mustang and the foal was palpable, stronger than anything Serena had ever witnessed in her years of training and experience. It was clear now, this wild Mustang was not just protecting its young, it had brought the foal to Serena, as if knowing she was the one who could help. The Mustang stood firm, unwavering, its head low and ears alert. Serena felt a strange calm wash over her, almost as if the wild horse understood something she couldn't yet grasp. Serena couldn't stop wondering, why? Why had this Mustang dragged the foal across miles of rugged terrain? The distance alone seemed unimaginable. The bag, the foal inside it, the Mustang's determination, it all felt too intentional, too deliberate to be a coincidence. The forest was vast, and the path the Mustang had taken was harsh, unforgiving. The foal was barely alive, its tiny form battered and broken, yet the Mustang hadn't abandoned it. Why not leave the foal to die, as most animals would in a similar situation? It was rare for any wild animal to go to such lengths for the survival of a weaker or injured companion, especially one so young and fragile. Wild animals are known for their survival instincts, and the strong don't carry the weak, they leave them behind. Yet, this Mustang had done the opposite. It had carried the foal. It had protected it. And now, it had brought it to Serena. Why? Was there something more going on here, something beyond the natural world she understood? As Serena sat by the foal, watching the Mustang's unwavering presence in the distance, a thought began to form in her mind. Could this be something more than just survival? Was there a deeper connection between the Mustang and the foal, one that transcended mere animal instinct? There was something mystical about the way the Mustang had brought the foal here, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. It wasn't just an animal saving another. It was as though the Mustang had a purpose, a mission, one that required Serena's help. The foal, so small and fragile, seemed like more than just a victim of circumstance. It felt like a symbol, a sign. And then, Serena's thoughts drifted to her own life. The years spent in the military, always pushing her limits, always fighting for survival. Was there something in the foal's struggle that mirrored her own struggles? Had the Mustang brought the foal here because it somehow knew Serena would understand? Could this be some cosmic connection, a deeper message calling her to action? Her gaze drifted back to the Mustang, still standing vigilant, its eyes never leaving the foal. And she understood then, it wasn't just a wild horse protecting its young. The foal's survival, its journey here, was tied to something much larger. It was connected to Serena's past, to the struggles she had endured, and perhaps even to the healing she had yet to do. This wasn't just about saving a foal, it was about something much more profound. Could the foal's survival be a message? Could the Mustang's presence be guiding her towards something greater? As the foal's shallow breaths slowed and steadied in her arms, Serena knew that this moment was far from over. She had to uncover the truth. She had to understand what the Mustang and the foal were really trying to tell her. As Serena looked down at the tiny foal in her arms, her mind began to drift, not to the foal's fragile body or its pitiful whimpers, but to her own past. Her eyes, though focused on the newborn Mustang, saw something else entirely, flashes of memories, dark and painful, creeping into her thoughts. The war zone. The faces of the people she couldn't save. The soldiers she had treated, some of them never making it out alive, their last breaths passing through her hands. Her heart clenched with a familiar, heavy ache. Those lost faces haunted her every day. It was a trauma she had never fully confronted, an emotional wound she had buried deep inside. The foal's delicate form, its eyes wide with fear, was a mirror of her own vulnerability, of everything she had never allowed herself to show. It was as if the foal, in its desperate need, was reflecting all the guilt, grief, and helplessness that had consumed Serena over the years. She had failed so many in her past, and now, she feared she would fail again. The burden of what she couldn't undo pressed heavily on her chest, threatening to suffocate her. But as the foal's soft, labored breathing steadied, Serena felt a strange pull. This wasn't just about the foal's survival. It was about her own. Serena swallowed hard, fighting back the tears that threatened to break free. She had to focus. She couldn't allow herself to drown in the memories of her past, no matter how painful. This foal, this fragile creature, needed her. The foal's fight for survival mirrored her own. Its struggle for life was a chance for Serena to heal, to redeem herself in a way she hadn't allowed for years. She had failed in the past. She had lost soldiers, loved ones, friends, innocent lives that had slipped through her fingers despite her best efforts. The guilt had eaten away at her, festering like an open wound. But this time she had a chance to make a difference. The foal's life was in her hands, and she wouldn't let it slip away. With renewed determination, Serena set aside her fear. The foal's injuries were severe, but it wasn't too late. She had the knowledge, the skills, and the heart to fight for it. This wasn't just about saving an animal, it was a chance to confront her own demons, to prove to herself that she was still capable of doing something good, something right. As she gently wrapped the foal in a soft blanket, she whispered softly to it, as if to comfort both the foal and herself, "I won't let you down." Serena worked tirelessly over the next few hours, her hands moving with practiced precision, despite the overwhelming emotions swirling inside her. The foal, although weak, seemed to respond to her care. She kept it warm, gently rubbing its shivering body with a cloth to improve circulation. Her military training kicked in, methodical, focused, and unwavering. She knew the foal needed nourishment, but its condition was so fragile. She mixed a special solution of electrolytes and nutrients, carefully administering it with a syringe, praying that it would stay down. She checked its breathing constantly, her ears straining for any change, any sign of progress. Her mind was sharp, but her heart was raw. Each movement she made was infused with a quiet desperation, a need to save this tiny life. The foal's labored breaths slowly became steadier, and her heart swelled with hope. It wasn't much, but it was enough to remind her that even the smallest victories could mean everything. The Mustang, still standing vigilantly in the distance, watched Serena's every move. She couldn't help but feel that it was giving her space to work, trusting her, as if it knew Serena was the one to fight for its foal. As she worked, she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that there was something more to this connection, something that went beyond survival. But for now, she couldn't think of that. She had a foal to save. Her resolve hardened. She wasn't just saving this foal. She was saving herself. And this time, she wasn't going to fail. As the days passed, Serena found herself growing more and more intrigued by the Mustang. The wild horse, initially a mystery in itself, had not wandered far from the cabin. Each morning, Serena would wake to find the Mustang standing quietly at the edge of the clearing, watching her with a watchful, almost knowing gaze. It was as if the Mustang had become a silent guardian, ensuring that the foal received the care it needed. Serena couldn't help but marvel at the creature's dedication. The Mustang didn't retreat into the forest or wander off. as wild animals often did when they had completed their task. No, this Mustang stayed close, a constant presence just outside the cabin, its wild eyes fixed on the foal, ever watchful, ever protective. Sometimes, when Serena would pause in her work, the Mustang would come a little closer, almost as if checking on her progress. There was something unmistakable in the way it behaved. Its movements were deliberate and patient, an acknowledgement of her efforts. It was as though the Mustang understood that Serena was working tirelessly to save its precious foal, and in some way it trusted her. Its loyalty was unconditional, and that deep connection was not lost on Serena. She couldn't help but wonder, was this more than mere instinct? Was there something else driving this animal to stay by her side? Or had this wild Mustang, in its own quiet way, recognized the fragility of its foal's survival and placed its trust in Serena, a human who had once been a healer? The question lingered, unanswered, but it added to the growing mystery of their relationship. As the foal's condition began to improve, Serena found herself forging an unexpected bond with the Mustang as well. She had always viewed animals from a professional standpoint, be it in the field of combat medicine or as part of her life in the military. But this was different. There was no protocol, no medical chart to fill out. There was just the foal, the Mustang, and Serena, three beings, each carrying its own pain, its own scars. The more she observed the Mustang, the more she felt a sense of healing within herself. Its silent presence had a calming effect on Serena. She found herself opening up in ways she hadn't in years. The foal's recovery, as fragile as it was, seemed to mirror her own journey of healing. As the foal grew stronger, so did Serena's resolve, and so did the invisible weight that had weighed her down for so long. There was something about this wild Mustang, about the way it cared for its foal and stayed close to Serena, that seemed to offer a kind of redemption, a reminder that not all hope was lost, and that bonds could be formed in the most unexpected ways. For the first time in a long time, Serena began to believe that perhaps she wasn't the only one who needed saving. Maybe, just maybe, this Mustang and its foal had come into her life at the right moment, when she needed them most. There were moments when she would sit by the foal's side, the Mustang not far away, and allow herself a brief, rare moment of peace. The foal would nuzzle into her touch, and the Mustang would lower its head slightly, as if to acknowledge her care. It wasn't just about the foal's survival anymore. This bond, this unexpected connection between a human and a wild Mustang, was something profound. Serena wasn't just tending to a sick animal, she was healing alongside it. As the Mustang stood nearby, ever loyal, she realized that this creature, this wild, untamed animal, was offering her something that no one else could. It was offering her the space to heal, to confront her own wounds, and to believe in herself again. With each passing day, as the foal grew stronger, so did the bond between Serena and the Mustang. There were no words exchanged, there was no need for them. The bond between them was deeper than that. It was the kind of bond that needed no explanation, no justification. It was a quiet understanding between two beings who had faced hardship, loss, and trauma. And now together, they were finding a way to heal. The Mustang's silent support helped Serena confront her own fears and doubts. She began to trust herself again. It was as if the Mustang knew her pain and in its own way, had chosen to stand by her side, just as she had chosen to stand by the foal. And as for the foal, it wasn't just a small, fragile creature anymore. It had become a symbol of resilience, of life's fragility and strength. The foal's survival, alongside the Mustang's unwavering presence, began to show Serena that hope could still be found, even in the darkest of times. This bond between species, this unlikely trio of Serena, the foal and the Mustang, was proof that sometimes, healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when we connect, when we open ourselves up to the unspoken bonds that can transcend pain and restore hope. As Serena watched the Mustang and the foal side by side, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. The weight of her past, the wounds that had never fully healed, seemed just a little lighter. And for the first time in years, Serena realized she was no longer alone in her struggle. She had found an unexpected family in the most unlikely of places, one that could offer her the healing she had longed for. The air was thick with anticipation as Serena sat quietly beside the foal. After days of careful attention, long nights of monitoring, and tireless dedication, the moment she had been waiting for finally arrived. The foal, once barely alive, now stirred with newfound strength. Serena's breath caught as she watched the foal struggle, its tiny legs trembling under the weight of its body, trying to stand. The ground was cold beneath it, but the determination in its eyes was unmistakable. For a moment, Time seemed to stand still as Serena held her breath, watching the foal's delicate movements. And then, slowly, cautiously, the foal lifted one leg, then the other. It stumbled but didn't fall. With each shaky step, Serena felt her heart swell with pride and relief. The foal was walking, small steps, but they were steps of hope, steps of life. The Mustang, who had remained close throughout the foal's recovery, watched from a distance. Its gaze was soft, yet filled with pride as it observed the foal's progress. It was almost as if the Mustang knew this was the turning point, the moment when the foal would reclaim its strength, just as Serena had been working to reclaim hers. Serena felt a wave of emotion wash over her as she knelt beside the foal. There, in the quiet of the forest, she witnessed something remarkable, the resilience of life. A creature that had once been broken and frail was now finding its way in the world again, and Serena's hands, once trembling with uncertainty, had been the ones to guide it. As the foal took its first successful steps, Serena realized something profound. The journey had been about so much more than just saving the foal. It had been about her own healing, her own redemption. She had fought to save the foal not just because it needed her, but because she needed the foal. She needed the sense of purpose, the connection, and the unwavering determination to fight for something that mattered. Looking at the foal, Serena saw not only a symbol of survival but a reflection of her own struggles. She had once been lost, unsure of herself, weighed down by the trauma and guilt from her past. But now, just like the foal, she was standing on her own, finding her footing again. The Mustang's quiet support, the foal's trust, had given her something she hadn't realized she needed, a reason to believe in herself again. The Mustang, who had watched over the foal with such quiet loyalty, had unknowingly become a part of Serena's own healing journey. Its silent strength had reminded her that sometimes healing doesn't require words. Sometimes it's about being present, offering support, and simply standing by each other, even in silence. The trust the Mustang had placed in her had led her to trust herself once more. As the foal took another tentative step forward, Serena felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had done what she thought was impossible. She had saved a life, but more than that, she had begun to save herself. The foal's recovery was a miracle, but it was also a reminder that miracles happen when we believe, when we allow ourselves to hope, even in the darkest of times. Serena stood tall, her heart full. The foal had made it. And in doing so, it had given Serena the strength to face her own battles, to heal her own wounds, and to move forward, just as the foal was doing now. There was still much to be done, but in that moment, Serena knew that the journey ahead, no matter how difficult, was one she would face with courage, with hope, and with the unwavering belief that healing was possible. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between Serena, the foal, and the wild Mustang grew stronger. The foal, now healthy and full of life, trotted alongside Serena with a playful energy that brought a sense of lightness to her heart. The once fragile, helpless creature had transformed into a strong, spirited being, and Serena couldn't help but marvel at its resilience. The Mustang, once a mysterious and solitary figure, had become a silent protector, standing watch over them with the quiet grace of a guardian. It was no longer the same wild horse that had arrived dragging a heavy, mysterious bag. It was now a part of Serena's family, an unexpected yet unwavering companion. Together, the three of them formed an unbreakable bond, a trio that had overcome the impossible and found strength in one another. Serena smiled as she watched the foal frolic in the open field, the Mustang grazing nearby. The cabin, once a place of solitude and reflection, now felt alive with the energy of these two remarkable creatures. In caring for the foal, Serena had discovered a new sense of purpose, and in return, the foal and Mustang had given her something far more valuable than she could have ever imagined: family. Though Serena had made great strides in her healing, she knew the road ahead would not always be easy. Her past would always be a part of her, and some wounds could never be fully erased. But with the Mustang and the foal by her side, Serena had a renewed sense of hope. The foal's spirit, its will to survive, reminded her that healing was a process, one that could not be rushed. Each step forward, no matter how small, was a victory. The bond they shared became a symbol of the resilience that existed not just in the natural world, but in her as well. The wild Mustang, who had initially seemed like an enigma, had brought a message of hope. It was as if the Mustang had come to guide her back to herself, just as it had guided the foal to safety. Together, they had endured hardship, faced uncertainty, and emerged stronger on the other side. Serena often found herself lost in thought, watching the foal and Mustang interact, their silent communication speaking volumes. In their eyes, she saw a reflection of her own journey, a journey that was far from over, but one that now held the promise of something greater. She had learned to trust again, not just the creatures who now shared her home, but also herself. The Mustang's arrival had been shrouded in mystery, its actions uncertain and its intentions unknown. At first, Serena couldn't understand why this wild animal had appeared in her life, dragging the heavy burden of the foal behind it. But as time passed, the Mustang's purpose became clear. It was not just a random wild animal, it had been a messenger of hope, leading Serena to the foal, and in turn, leading her back to herself. In a way, the Mustang had been the catalyst for her transformation. It had brought her face to face with her own pain and vulnerability, but it had also guided her to the courage and strength she had long since buried. And now, as she watched the Mustang graze in the field, Serena understood that this wild creature had given her more than just the foal, it had given her a new beginning. The foal's first steps, its miraculous recovery, and the bond they had formed with the Mustang had given Serena a chance to start anew. The past was still there, but it no longer had the power to define her. The future was uncertain, but with her new family by her side, Serena was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would continue their journey, not just through the forest, but through life itself. And as Serena looked at the foal, now fully recovered, and the Mustang standing proudly beside her, she knew that they had found something far greater than survival. They had found a home, a family, and the hope of a brighter tomorrow. As the sun began to set over the forest, Serena stood silently by the cabin, watching the foal and the Mustang together. The foal, now fully recovered and full of energy, trotted around the Mustang, playfully nipping at its legs. The Mustang, once a mysterious force in her life, now appeared as a steady presence, a protector and a guide. Serena's heart swelled as she realized the depth of the journey she had been on. The Mustang's actions, initially so puzzling, were not just about survival. It wasn't just about the foal. No, it was about the shared journey of redemption and healing that they had both embarked on. What had started as a mysterious, unsettling encounter had blossomed into something much deeper. The foal's survival mirrored Serena's own emotional recovery. Just as the foal had fought against the odds, struggling to survive in the face of unimaginable hardship, Serena had fought against the shadows of her past, battling her own guilt, regrets, and trauma. And just as the foal had found its strength again, Serena too was reclaiming hers. It was as though they had been brought together for this purpose, to heal, to overcome, and to find strength in one another. As Serena watched them together, she knew that her life had been changed forever. The bond between her and the Mustang, and between her and the foal, was something she could never have imagined. They had not only saved each other, they had given each other a new beginning. Serena's journey serves as a reminder to us all. Sometimes the most unexpected moments in life can lead to the greatest transformations. What began as a mystery, an eerie sound, a wild Mustang dragging a bag, became a profound tale of hope, resilience, and the power of connection. Through the foal's survival, Serena found not just healing for the foal, but for herself as well. Her story speaks to the heart of what it means to overcome adversity, to rise above our darkest moments, and to embrace the unexpected paths life lays before us. It's a story of the incredible bond between humans and animals, a bond that can transcend pain, trauma, and fear. Serena's healing journey, made possible through her connection with the foal and the Mustang, proves that even in the most unlikely circumstances, hope and redemption are possible. And just as Serena found healing through the strength of these animals, so too can we all find our own paths to healing when we open ourselves to the unexpected.